All right. We'll move on to the New York Central. So this is a Ralph Phillips photo in Boston, an RS-1. These were delivered in the early 50s, so this is a little earlier than most of the Rodney's photos. We're in Albany, New York, with a passenger train.
I believe that's eastbound, headed for New York City.
Headed to New York. All right. Now we're in Buffalo, and H-1244 switching Frontier Yard, and these were renumbered for the Penn Central. When did the Penn Central merger take place?
1968, February.
Okay,
February 1st.
Okay, so they were getting ready here because this was in May. Also in Buffalo, this is a Stubblefield photo. This is a U-30B set on a freight train. Notice a nice signal bridge in the background. This is also in Buffalo. Photographer is unknown. A pair of train masters working in the yard.
Those old freight cars in the background are really interesting too. That tank car and the New York Central boxcar.
Is that 40s?
I don't know. They're 40-footer boxcars.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is nice.
And one of these units is, and weren't they set up to run short hood forward? So the lead unit here is running long hood forward, which is a little unusual, I think.
I don't know the answer to that. I know that initially Central road switches were set up to run long hood forward.
Oh, okay, they were. So that's the correct configuration. All right.
Well, the engine crews always like to run long nose forward, right? Because it was a safer position for them to be in case of a crossing accident.
Yes, that's true. Jim, if you look at the front of 5105 in the white field.
Right here, it says F.
Right.
Yeah, okay. All right, now we're in Brownsville, PA, down south of Pittsburgh. Our first look at a Shark unit with a hopper train. And my notes say this is one of the 7 Sharks that were sent to the Monongahela.
I also think it may be one of the 2 that went on to the D&H, but I won't swear to that.
Yeah.
And I never got a chance to look.
Yeah, I mean, this would be on the Monongahela, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. If it was in Brownsville.
Yeah.
That's correct. Only the Pennsy went into Brownsville.
All right, this is in Northeast Pennsylvania. Set of GP40s. Again, this is in the Penn Central era after the merger.
So what's interesting in this picture to me is you can see where there were other tracks here, and at one time this was Ford track. And when Alfred Perlman took over the presidency, he installed centralized traffic control and took out 2 of the tracks on the Ford track.
And this is now CSX, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Now we're in Wesleyville, PA. Interesting mix here. U-30B, a Jeep 40, another U-30B, 2 more Jeep 40s. Again, I believe this is in the Penn Central era, given the date.
Yep.
Wesleyville again. Love those bi-level open auto racks back there.
Jim, was most of Rodney's work pretty well documented?
He did a very good job of labeling his slides to the point where on many of them, he had every locomotive noted with its classification.
Wow.
So the only thing he didn't put on the slides was direction, but date, railroad, all the details on locomotives, a symbol if he knew one. So he did an excellent job. And on his black and white film, they're all in canisters, and then in many of them there's a little small notebook page that's folded up about 15 times, rolled over and stuck in there with the details on all the photos that were black and white that he took.
So there are two interesting things about this photo. The first is the cars are open auto racks.
Yeah.
And those are long gone. And the second is, look at the trucks on the 2059. I think those are Alco's versions of high adhesion trucks.
Trucks?
They look very different.
All right. They do. I had noticed that. Yeah, and particularly this large spring assembly here.
Good.
All right, here we are in Hazleton, Ohio, with three FB2s trailing an FA2 on what Rodney labeled as a coal train. There's a sequence here of shots from this area. Looking the other way at Hazleton, PC F7, notice the Boston and Maine unit second, and I think I saw something on the slide. Did they run a train to Bow, New Hampshire?
Yes.
For coal? Yeah, and I think there was a note on the slide that this was that particular train. But just an interesting concept there. U-25B, another F7, a GP40.
In the back, go back to that previous one for a second.
Yeah.
So in the background there, you have what's known as an ore bridge, and it's used to transport steel-making raw materials. And I think what you have here are taconite pellets over to where they can be charged into the blast furnace.
Over here.
Yes.
Taconite. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't look like coal.
No, it's not.
Yeah. And here we are looking the other way. Another hopper train. And now you got the New York Central paint scheme, PRR paint scheme, and the Penn Central Mating Worms paint scheme on the hopper train. This is in Perry, Ohio, and we have a series of photographs here by Rodney Yates on a passenger train. Again, lots of head-end power. Mail was still traveling by rail back then. Another passenger train in Perry with this older, rather worn New York Central passenger scheme and the new simplified version with the cigar band on the nose. A set of GP35s. And looks like a hopper train. And notice, and I've noticed this on a number of the other photos, no dynamic brakes. I guess being the water level route, New York Central didn't think they needed dynamic brakes on some of their locomotives that they ordered during this time frame. GP35 and 4 U-25Bs, again, no dynamics in the 35. Passenger, Perry, Ohio. Simplified scheme on the E8s.
I always equated the loss of the New York Central lightning stripes to the loss of the Penzi pinstripes. They never were quite the same look.
Yeah. anything you could do to save a few bucks. They were having tough times. Okay, and again, nice that we see the auto rack here. And of course, in all these pictures, I've seen a number of auto racks, but no auto rack trains back then. There wasn't enough business, I guess, to dedicate a train. So this is an RS3, F82, another RS3. There's your lightning stripes, E7A and E8A.
So the freight lightning stripe was black instead of the gray that you see around the nose.
Yeah, I think we have some examples of that a little later, yes. All right, here's a single Jeep leading a passenger train. Again, no dynamic brakes. Okay, there's the freight scheme with black rather than gray, with the cigar band, and a couple of U-30Bs trailing. Jeep 30, a 35, a U-30B, another 35, and a 30. And you can see the GP30s, again, no dynamics. Yet the trailing 35 does have dynamic brakes. GP9 leading an F7 and a couple of what I think might be GP20s, looking at the configuration, but and at Wickliffe, Ohio, and there's a big transformer. High wide load is the first one out.
So now that's really cool to see that big transformer and then the electric power right to the left. That really works.
Yeah, right. All we need is a lightning bolt between the two of them. All right. A sea liner in Collinwood, Ohio. Collinwood was east of Cleveland?
Yes, east of Cleveland.
Yeah. And New York Central had 12 of these and 3 B units. And of course, here you have to kind of look, but you can see. So this is a freight unit. It's black with the lightning stripes rather than gray with the lightning stripes. I love this shot. There's so much in there to look at, most of which is probably gone. Good look at the GP20 leading the train in the foreground, an RS32, another Jeep 20, another RS32. Yeah, just an interesting shot. The coaling tower, the PRR hopper cars. Love that shot. And there's also at Collingwood with the GP35s and U25Bs. The competitors are lined up here. And no dynamic brakes on the Jeep 35s. Another at Collingwood with U25Bs. And notice the windshields here. On the left, we got a single pane. On the right, 2 panes. They were expensive to replace. Better only to have to do half the front end than the entire one. But it's nice to see a consist with all the same power. Here, a Shark at Collingwood. And this kind of demonstrates a solid black scheme can look pretty good if you do a good job with a little lettering and a little red on the nose emblem. Simple but stylish. All right, now we have a whole series in, I don't know, this is Akron. I think we have some more Akron later. Anyway, this is a U25B. Pair of them on a freight in Akron. Okay, now we're in Now we're in Cleveland, and this is the bridge over the Cuyahoga River. I think it's referred to as Bridge 1. It's the first one south of Lake Erie. Set of F3s. I believe this is eastbound. Same location, a Jeep 9, and a couple of F units, a B and an A, which is probably an F3 trailing. And I think this is westbound at that same bridge. This has got at least some PC numbering in here, because you can see the third unit has already been renumbered and lettered for Penn Central.
That looks like an ore boat in the background there, Bob.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jim, I think all of those units had been renumbered PC, but only the rear one had been repainted.
Painted, yeah. Probably right. I agree. All right, here's a caboose hop in Cleveland with a sea liner. And this is the simplified scheme versus the one we saw earlier with the lightning stripes. And S4 switching in Cleveland, that's Terminal Tower in the background. I like the radio insignia here. The atomic locomotive. All right, and we've got a bunch more in Cleveland. This must have been a good train watching spot. 5 beats.
There's a U.S. mail truck in the old paint scheme.
Yeah.
I'll bet you that's the class unit leading.
Yeah, 2,500. 2,500. Now we're in Cleveland with the competitors.
Another rowboat on the right.
Yeah.
Another shot in Cleveland. Now here you can see, I think, the difference between gray and black. We're mixing up some passenger power, maybe, or is that just weathered black?
I think it's weathered black because those trailing units are FTs.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, they're old enough to have grayed down from the shiny black they were painted with.
And besides that, unlike the Santa Fe, I don't think the New York Central ever used FTs in passenger service.
All right, another switcher, S2 in Cleveland with the Otis Terminal Warehouse. I've got pictures in Chicago at the Canal Street Y with Otis Terminal Warehouses in the background.
Huh.
Back in the 70s or 80s. They got around. Another set of U-25Bs in Cleveland. GP7, I like the Western Maryland hopper car there. Again, no dynamic brakes. Now this is a U-30B, which was rebuilt from a U-33B. And apparently they did that on a number of units on the Central. This is at Berea. Now we're in Wellington. An FA2, an FB1, and an FB2, again on a hopper train. And I think the next series of shots are on the way down towards Cincinnati. There's also Wellington, a sea liner, I believe, trailing. Series of GP7s on a passenger train. So they were not adverse to putting these on passenger service. GP30, two Jeep 30s. I don't know what the trailing units are. This is also Wellington. Four F7s. Nice shiny paint on the lead unit where you can really tell that it's black and not gray. This was listed as the Ohio State Limited, which was, I believe, a New York to Cincinnati train with a simplified scheme. We are at Greenwich, which is crossing with the B&O and the AC&Y.
So now here is where you get a major junction for CSX, because the line coming out of Cleveland down to Cincinnati crosses, as you said, the former B&O. So traffic coming, say, from Selkirk Yard going to Chicago would come down here and take the connection and go west on the B&O.
Now, I photographed here, doesn't Wheeling and Lake Erie run through here now?
They have a train, one or two trains a day that have trackage rights through here.
Okay. On CSX or on?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because I think I've got a photograph from pretty much this location, CSX, a few years ago. Now we're in Riverside, Ohio.
That's just west of Cincinnati. It's a Cincinnati suburb, basically.
Okay. And in Riverside, a pair of sharks. Like this shot with the snow in Sharonville. This was labeled B&O transfer in Cincinnati with a single shark and a caboose with a boarded up cupola. Now this was in Rodney's collection. I don't know who photographed it. I did a little research. This is Train X, and Baldwin had essentially stopped building locomotives, but they put together this with Pullman standard equipment trailing there and sold a set to the New York Central and the New Haven. They had a hydraulic transmission very similar to what was used in the Krauss Maffei diesel hydraulics, and the engine and transmission were mounted on the front power truck. I don't think this lasted very long. It's kind of a one-off. Here we are in Westview, Ohio. Looks like Jeep 20 on the lead is right out of the shop. Then the units trailing look like they're Missouri Pacific Jeep 20s.
That's correct. They are Missouri Pacific.
Yeah. And it looks like the first load is
that track?
I don't know if it's track or those truck or automobile frames.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. All right, now we're in Olmsted Falls, Ohio. I think we're back on the line to Chicago. An E8A and an E7A and a passenger.
Is that a sweater up in the window up there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, hanging over the visor. Nice shot of some Elcos at Olmsted Falls. And again, we got some auto racks. I notice every time I see an auto rack, it's right behind the power. I guess that it gives them a chance to kind of keep an eye on.
You know, Jim, Bob had mentioned earlier how nice it is to see these vintage auto racks where you can see what's on them. But, you know, when you think about the trajectory of auto transport by rail, well, they started out in boxcars where you couldn't see them. Then they went to these open racks where you could see them. Then they went back to today where they're behind metal and you can't see them again. There was a little brief window there that we could enjoy seeing vehicles on trains.
Yeah, what they were hauling was nice. All right, another passenger train on Olmsted Falls. Said a Jeep 7, a Jeep 9, an F7. The 7 and 9 look well. Even the F7 looks pretty clean. Although, well, that's been already repainted for or relettered for Penn Central. So neither the 7s or 9s had dynamic brakes. So here we are at Elyria, Ohio, another passenger train. This is a one-off paint scheme on an E8 in Toledo. And this was a picture I took a couple of years ago in Boonton at the museum there where the United Railway Historical Society decided to paint one of their units in this green scheme.
It is a stark color contrast.
Yes. All right, here we are at Wauseon, Ohio, with an E7, A, and a B. This is Byron, Ohio. This is the oldest slide in the collection. This was not Rodney's, from 1946, an FTA and a B, and a very basic paint scheme. Perhaps stopped given the crew member hanging out the window there on the front. Now we're in West Detroit. It was a yard there. Just some roster shots, some Alco FAs, FBs. This is an interesting photo with baby face, which I found in doing this show and the PRR show basically had the same innards as the first Sharks. They were 1,500 horsepower freight unit, and they could be ordered in the baby face or the Shark, or maybe they went from one to the other, but they're both the same internally. New York Central had 4 of these, and they had 2 B units. And apparently, this unit was repowered with an EMD 567 prime mover in 1956. And there's a nice shot with the freight lightning stripe scheme. Again, West Detroit in the snow with a Shark and the U-25B. This is an Erie-Built, which was basically a sea liner, but Fairbanks Morris didn't have enough production capacity, and they farmed out construction to the Erie, Pennsylvania plant. Thus the name Erie-Built.
Jim, these predated the sea liners.
Right, yeah.
And I think these were passenger engines.
Yeah.
Because you can see this has a 6-axle.
Yeah, it says A1A.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And apparently somewhere I found that even though the innards are basically the same, the length is different, I guess because of the A1A trucks.
Right.
Yeah, they had to be longer. But it's the same prime mover, generator, etc.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Another shot, Erie-Built in West Detroit in Rodney's collection. There's a sea liner.
By the way, you can see a difference in the nose between the sea liner and
Right.
the Erie-Built.
Yeah. All right, this is also in Detroit. And I have a location somewhere. This was a spot where they apparently, well, there's a yard there. I don't know what the name of the yard is, but the street is named somewhere in my notes that I can't find right now, where they apparently worked. And it was I've seen a number of other photos in Roddy's collection, not in this show, from this same location. It's a nice set of FA2s, pinstripes in the simplified paint scheme. Here we are at Town Line, Michigan. Some F's in the snow. Shot of RS-32s in Detroit. And here we are with a set of E8s, also in Detroit, in front of the Michigan Central Station, which was last used by Amtrak in 1988. It's been vacant since then, but it was acquired by Ford Motor Company in 2018 and is in the process of being redeveloped. This is at Lanyo Avenue in Detroit. Set of U-25Bs, at least the first unit. I'm not sure what all the trailing units are. This is the fuel rack at Lanyo Avenue. This was labeled Advanced NY4.
Yeah, the trailing unit in the previous one, I'll bet you, is an RS-32 because it has an 8032 number. Matter of fact, that same engine is in the next picture.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's 8033.
1 digit difference. Okay.
Right.
There's all right. Interesting fuel car over here.
Yeah.
All right. I guess the mail is no longer traveling by passenger trains here at Brimfield, Indiana. Whoops. Back here. This is at the yard at Indianapolis. The Sea-Liner, front and center, well, front and left. And this is from Roddy's collection. He traded with a lot of people, and a lot of the traders did not have the photographer's name on them. Here we are at LaSalle Street station with DRS 44 1500 doing the switching. And back here you can see Rock Island commuter cars. They shared LaSalle Street. There's the 20th Century Limited looking pretty ragged at LaSalle Street, again taken from Roosevelt Road. Then to finish up, I got a couple of pictures in his collection that were actually west of Chicago on the CB&Q triple track, train with GP35s at Congress Park, Illinois. And the last one is at Western Springs, Illinois, where I have photographed a number of times. But unfortunately, I didn't get New York Central U-25Bs. And that is it, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Well, Jim, thank you so much. Great collection. Thank you for putting that together. And Bob, thank you for your insight into the background of some of these photos. And Steve, thank you for the technical end of things there.
Great content, great locations, great railroads, good
Okay.
content.
Thank you.